chosen to talk to you today about Ben Okri's quote, "Stories can conquer fear, they make the heart bigger." I will support my argument that many people fear what they do not know or do not understand. This is especially true when it comes to fearing people of different races and cultures. Stories such as the narrative incidents in the life of a slave girl can help the reader to understand things about the African American race and slavery that they really don't understand. Maybe the reader has never even attempted to try and understand the black race and how horrible slavery actually was. It is unfortunate that even in the year 2015, there are still white people who are very racist and think that slavery is not a bad thing. Whites have grown up in a society where they are superior, and for them to think their race might be as deserving or superior as they are scares them to death. These white racist people do not want change at all. They fear change. Racist whites in today's society cannot accept the fact that blacks are people too. They are being forced to practice equality. This creates a massive resistance to any change, especially in the Southern tradition. This is a scary thought for your average Southern white racist rattles that comfort of living in their segregated society to the point where violence can ensue. One example I want to share with you is from the beginning of Jacob's narrative, where she explains to her readers what they are going to read might not be pleasant, but nonetheless is true. And I quote, "Reader, be assured this narrative is no fiction. I am aware that some of my adventures may seem incredible, but they are, nevertheless, strictly true. I have not exaggerated the wrongs inflicted by slavery. On the contrary, my descriptions fall far short of the facts." Unquote. Jacobs opens her autobiography with these boldly stated instructions to her mostly white readers. Jacobs knows that many white Northerners will be unwilling to accept her story, so she must assert her authority over her narrative from the start. She literally orders her readers to be absurd, establishing an active, confident narrative voice. Also, Jacobs is about to make her sexual transgressions public, and she cannot trust her readers to be sympathetic. Therefore, she lets her audience know that wherever their interpretation of her story will be, she will remain firmly in control of it. Even as she asserts power over her readers, Jacobs also creates a feeling of intimacy with them by addressing them directly. This is an important strategy, given the sexually frank and politically controversial nature of her text. By making her narrator seem like a real person with whom readers can identify, she makes them less likely to automatically reject her story as unbelievable or immoral. Another example I want to share from the narrative is when Jacobs informs the reader, and I quote, "Pity me and pardon me, O virtuous reader. You never knew what it is to be a slave, to be entirely unprotected by law or custom, to have the laws reduced you to the condition of chattel, entirely subject to will of another." Unquote. In this remark from chapter 10, Jacobs makes one of her narrative's most powerful and radical claims. The other women have no right to condemn her for her shocking revelations about her sexual history unless they have been similarly victimized. As in the preface, she uses a direct tone, taking charge of the reader as a controversial moment and asserting her right to interpret her own life story. If you have never been powerless in the face of sexual harassment and abuse, Jacob argues, you cannot possibly understand what she has been through. The implication is that slaves should not be judged according to the moral and legal standards of the free world at all. Since slaves have no control over their bodies, they cannot reasonably be convicted of unethical or legal actions. Elsewhere in the book, Jacobs makes similar arguments about slaves' relationships to crime and in the law, even defending the right of the slave to steal from her master on the grounds that as all slaves are owed a lifetime of paid wages. In addition, Jacobs refutes the myth that slaves were naturally inferior by telling her readers that blacks are not only inferior because slavery and the white man have rendered him so. Jacobs tells us in her narrative that if a black person is refused education, is kept from religion, and lives his life as a paranoid and frightened state, it is no wonder that he cannot develop his mind. The mere fact that Jacobs wrote such a remarkable book is a testament to the abilities of blacks when given the right opportunities to attain learning and cultivation of the mind. Jacobs' works seeks to combat stereotypes that lead whites to look upon slaves as subhuman. Unfortunately, those stereotypes are still prominent in our society today. There are still white people who believe that black people are subhuman. Sad. These white people have been raised to believe that the white race is superior to all other races, when it is not. It is these kinds of people who need to read Jacob's narrative. Most of these people do not understand, nor have tried to understand, the history of black Americans. Simply put, ignorance to bliss, and the white racist, in my opinion, is just that, ignorant. Maybe, just maybe, their hearts could be made bigger, as Ben Okri stated. Jacob's story could finally help in conquering their fears,